1999, and Médecins Sans Frontières receives the Nobel Peace Prize. For over 30 years, MSF has combined medical assistance with standing up for human rights. MSF was set up in 1971 by a group of French doctors who'd been appalled by the absence of medical and humanitarian aid in the Biafran War. Today, MSF has offices in 18 countries. It's gained a reputation throughout the world for fearlessness and excellence, but also, some would say, of arrogance, of deliberately being a maverick in the aid community. But what motivates the Médecins to give up comfortable and often well-paid occupations to work in areas of conflict and destitution? In our series, Doctors on the Front Line, MSF has allowed our film crews unique access to their missions in Haiti, Sudan, Honduras and Somalia. We'll see how it delivers a lot more than medical aid and find out what makes highly qualified people become humanitarian legionnaires. Southern Sudan, and the crew is with the MSF team trying to get supplies in. But news from the cockpit is not good. A flooded runway means they will have to turn back. For the MSF team on board, it may mean days before they can try again. They return to Lokichokio in northern Kenya. It's MSF's base of operations. Originally no more than a village, over recent years, Lokichokio has sprouted into an aid agency city. From here, over 40 organisations run relief missions into war-torn southern Sudan. True to its reputation for independence, MSF has chosen to work outside Operation Lifeline, the UN umbrella organisation. In Lokichokio, even at the best of times, communications are difficult.
Negative, this is another thing. We have our regular flight on 7 to your location, over.
We receive you 205, we don't understand, over.
You receive me 2/5, over.
He said one day, it's now going to 1 week.
There's a 10-day delay before Gideon Tongo Kenny, a lab technician, finally gets to MSF's hospital at Marial Lou in southern Sudan. It's July 2005, 6 months after the signing of an historic peace deal. Médecins Sans Frontières has been running a hospital in Marial Lou since 1997. It's in the tribal land of the Dinka pastoralists. This is a pre-developed Africa. There's no electricity, no running water, no roads.
And they put a pipe on the middle.
This is Fernando Galvan's second stint with MSF. Before Sudan, the Argentinian was in Honduras. His 6-month assignment is almost over. MSF planned a centre dispensing basic services, but the southern Sudanese authorities wanted a proper hospital.
There was no infrastructure before the war, and during the war there was no educational system whatsoever. So to run a hospital and not having medical trained people was always a challenge, and it still is. That, together with the fact that there was no acceptance for the medicine we were offering at the beginning. So there was a process of making understood what we were doing here and what we were offering, and so that people accepted.
Even here in remote Marial Lou, there are medicines for sale, but they are of the quack variety, and if they are not, most are well past their sell-by dates. Local people have even got used to injecting themselves. The practice adds to MSF's challenges.
Well, a variety of drugs that they say come from Uganda, and including injectable penicillin, which is of course a real worry because apart from people just self-injecting, it also can develop antibiotic resistance. There's a belief here that injections are much more powerful than any other kind of Western medicine, particularly ones in tablet form, that they think it sits in the stomach and doesn't do any good, but injections go straight into the blood.
Very quickly, the MSF hospital has won the trust of the locals. Marial itself is benefiting. The people coming here for healthcare trade their goods at the same time. And by the standards of Southern Sudan, it's booming.
I can see a lot of changes if I compare it with 97. In 97, you can even count the tukuls around here in this village. But right now, there are so many tukuls around Marial. Even the market has even expanded. Shabag? Shabag, man? Shabag?
Arop Deng is from the Dinka tribe. Arop tells us he's respected because unlike most Dinka with an education who left during the war, he has returned to help his people. With him is Chol Mayai, the spear master or witch doctor. While the spear master will never accept the missionaries and Christianity, amazingly, he's come to accept the hospital. He even refers people he can't help to the Médecins. The spear master is both healer and spiritual leader. He tells our crew he can kill a chicken just by thought. What he would never do is kill a cow. For the Dinka, cattle are milk, prestige, and money in the bank. A Dinka cannot hope to get a wife unless he has cows for a dowry. That's why fathers prefer to have daughters here. Only in very exceptional circumstances will cattle be killed for meat. The current food crisis has forced them to sell off their stock to buy food. They've started killing their cows for meat. This Dinka man explains. He says he doesn't care about the peace deal at the moment. All he cares about is staving off hunger. 150 locally employed staff and 20 expatriates work for this field operation. Half are based at the hospital in Marial Lou. The others spend their time out in the surrounding region running feeding clinics. Nabakok village is just 35 kilometres from MSF's base camp in Marial Lou, but it takes 2 hours to get there. Increasing numbers of people are attending the supplementary feeding centres. It's July, and there will be no harvest until late August. This Dinka woman says there's nothing left to eat at home. She says there's no nourishment in her breast milk. She says they're having to forage alongside their livestock. These women say the leaves they eat give them diarrhea. MSF is well aware of the danger of creating food dependency, so its screening process for treatment is rigorous. These field clinics are mainly for the benefit of the infants. It operates a triage system. A green band means no food ration is needed. Red or orange, indicating the severity of malnourishment, means the child needs supplementary feeding.
Are they going to be able to carry these ones? They are very small. These ones, they are orphans. This one, yeah. So one of them is so severely malnourished. So the elder one is taking care of the family. Okay. We'll start calling the other ones one by one.
In the outlying stations, MSF finds the most severe cases of infant malnutrition. The job now becomes one of persuading the families that they should be cared for at the Marial Lou hospital. It's a big risk for the Dinka, because it means leaving cattle and fields more vulnerable to raiders. Those who are persuaded quickly find that the MSF team is also vulnerable to the quagmire that this region becomes in the rainy season.
Sky for 1-3.
Ben Meranga is a doctor recruited from Kenya. He's in Marial for just a month.
The sicker you are, then the more likely you are to be in the pediatric ward. Because of that, mortality is quite high. And patients interpret this to mean that, oh, you know, many of those who go to the pediatric ward don't come back. So you have to spend half the time looking at the child, assessing the child, and prescribing the therapeutic modalities for the child, and then half the time convincing the mother that this is actually good for the child to be admitted in a pediatric ward, because they are really, really scared about coming here. So this is one of the unfortunate cases we've had.
Despite MSF's best efforts, there are still people who leave the hospital before their treatment is complete. This woman explains that she took her child out of the hospital because she was told there were cattle raiders in the area. It's a harsh reality. A child is sometimes rated below cattle. Her child died 2 days later from overfeeding to hasten its recovery and her departure from the ward. Among the MSF people, Marial has the reputation as the posting from hell. Even the Sudanese, such as Gideon Tongu Kenyi, find it difficult to adapt. When the film crew arrived, he said he wanted to be on the next plane out. He misses his friends and feels totally isolated.
So first time, so when I'm alone, so I'm completely alone. They wrote in my paper, say they'll be here for 3 months if the things are okay. But if there are some difficulties, I will call them and they will take me back. Yeah.
What's very difficult here is the social life. You are so far away from friends, which you have in many other places, but here you cannot, or we don't have a setup to develop a more social life with the community, not at the moment. And it's due to the setup of MSF, the rules, the issue of the war made that the MSF had very strong rules. So we have a curfew.
In Marial Lou, you do 3 things: work, sleep, or watch a DVD for the 10th time. The next morning, Desma and Sonette returned from a brief visit to the remote clinic in Langkap. But darkness fell before they could get back to Marial Lou, and they were forced to spend the night in the bush.
Don't laugh! Oh dear, it was nice with the mosquitoes. The mosquitoes were good. We have a nice backup. Very good, yeah. The bush. What do we do?
Unexpected problems like this lead to unrest among some employees. Not only does Fernando have to cope with the threat of famine, he also has to manage a restless local staff. Some are threatening to quit.
The reason we are working here, it is not because of the money. This one, it is our country, and we have to help our people. Like now, we have a lot of patients suffering in the remote area. We have to go and collect them. So, and when people are overlooking you and there is no any consideration, no sharing idea, that one, it is very hard to work.
This is something we don't want. It's clear we don't want these situations, and I talked about it the other day, and I say it now again, that the situation now, the emergency pushed us to a limit, and especially you and the logistic in general, but drivers included. And I think it's too much, and that's why we decided last week not to go to Nabakok, and now we decided not to go to Langkap.
With mounting evidence of a nutritional crisis gripping the area, the MSF team heads off to another outlying field clinic at a village called Akop. The vehicles are stacked with ration packs. It's another gruelling journey. First, the lead 4x4 gets bogged down. Then the second. Only when a third vehicle comes from Marial Lou are all pulled out of the mud. The 44-kilometre trip takes them 4 hours. By the time they arrive, a big crowd has gathered, a sure sign the hunger is serious. Civil war and failed harvests are to blame. The Dinka say this year the rains were so heavy they destroyed crops. But some detractors think the people are getting used to food aid, something MSF wants to avoid. Sunta Angong, a mother of 4, gets a 4.5 kilo bag of a premix of corn, soya, sugar and oil. It's meant for the youngest, but she asks how she can feed only one when 3 others go hungry. While the children eat, the adults look on. Some of them admit they are tempted to eat the premix food themselves, but they say it tastes disgusting. Sunta's neighbour, Akur Mar, says that she thought the end of the civil war would mean an improvement in their lives. Above all, that they could return to food self-sufficiency. It hasn't happened yet. Food drops were promised, but those haven't happened either. Forced to pick and cook green leaves, Akur says she's forgotten what real food looks like.
There's a chronic situation of malnutrition, which makes the population very fragile. And if the situation deteriorates at a certain moment, there'll be a peak. That's what happened in 2001, and what is certainly happening this year. And very surely it's going to happen next year, because it's been 2 years that hasn't been enough rains, and food distribution is insufficient, and so on.
Karima Hamadi from France has been with MSF for 8 years. She's a nutritional nurse by training. She's worked some tough assignments, but for her, Marial is the toughest. Today, her problem is that 40 mothers who were supposed to pick up food for their infants have failed to turn up. Karima thinks her team is at fault.
They always go to Ngava. They will not come here because Marial Lou is far for them.
They're protesters. They must have French origins.
What are they demanding?
They're demanding the right not to work.
In fact, they don't want to walk, right?
Sure. One of the ideas was to increase the crew, to cover more villages. Me, I'm against it, because as long as we can't do anything with the existing crew, I don't feel like controlling 15 guys who do zilch. First, let's see what they can do, then we'll see. If they really work well and they bring back the children, or at least find the reasons why the children aren't coming, we'll think about increasing the crew to cover more villages.
Yesterday night, the water was...
This man has one of the most daunting jobs in MSF. Olivier Baron is the logistics coordinator with the task of getting the people and goods into Marial Lou. He combines this with being air traffic controller, for it is Olivier's call to decide whether a plane can land or take off.
But it's muddy.
That's why there are nice tracks. The problem is, if it lands by bad luck where there's accumulated water, the tyre gets stuck. The plane will spin, and when that happens, something breaks. After all, it's going at 150 kilometers an hour.
And if there is a crash?
If there is a crash, the airstrip's destroyed. So we'll have to wait for the dry season to fix it. That's why we have to be very careful before giving an OK for the plane to land.
It's August. The harvest is not as good as expected. The people are more dependent on their cattle than ever. The killings in Darfur in Western Sudan are attracting world attention. The World Food Programme gets just 30% of what it asks for and can make only one food drop in the Marial Lou area.
South Sudan is forgotten, that's for sure. After 22 years of civil war, South Sudan is completely forgotten, like other countries, like Somalia, Angola, the north of Uganda. For sure, it's a situation that's been forgotten.
Rebel leader John Garang is sworn in as Vice President of Sudan. 3 weeks later, he dies in a helicopter crash. Is it an accident or an assassination? Riots break out. Without a durable peace to enable roads to be built, the rural hospital and its food stations will struggle to meet local needs, and Marial Lou will retain its reputation as MSF's most demanding posting. Next week, on Doctors on the Front Line, we are at the MSF Centre in Honduras, which gives hope to the young victims of street violence.